Athletic, Dave Lombardi and Matt Barrows sat down with Chris Kasarik. And this was actually from when the coaches sat down with us the other day. But they kind of, went through and did a whole breakdown of all the different things that Kasarik talked about. And I was standing right there, and, Kasarik talked about losing his longtime assistant, Daryl Tapp, who's now with the Commanders.
Yeah.
And Cameron Brown, the son of Mike Brown, the Kings coach, has stepped into the Daryl Tapp role as like assistant D-line coach. And there's a bunch of new faces. I mean, Eric Armstead's gone. Kinlaw's gone. Cleveland Farrell's gone. Chase Young's gone. Randy Gregory's gone. All these guys are out. And yet, and then Leonard Floyd's in, and Malik Collins is in, and Yatir Gross-Matos is in, and Jordan Elliott is in, and Evan Anderson is in, and Shaquille Brown potentially is in, and we'll see. And there's some others. What do you think, Raj? This is such a key part of what makes the 49ers that, I almost feel like we've talked, every year, and I was saying this to somebody else today, that, it's like there's topics that we talk about like too much. Last year it was Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. This year it's Brandon Ayuk and his whole freaking contract situation.
Yeah.
And then there's always a topic that deserves our conversation, but we just don't talk about it very much for whatever reason. And I feel like this year, the topic that needs to be discussed that isn't being discussed is the Niners defensive line and run defense specifically. But Armstead, Kinlaw, Farrell, Young, Gregory gone, Floyd, Collins, Gross-Matos, and Elliott and Evan Anderson in. What do you think, Raj? I mean, I know it's kind of guesswork, but would you say the Niners, are they better off than what they were? I mean, they lost some big names, but only Armstead really was playing. I mean, Farrell was playing a little bit, but he's slow as molasses. He could never rush the quarterback, really. I mean, he was good on the first series sometimes, because he was fresh, but he was not much of a pass rusher. Chase Young literally played at 3/4 speed in one of the biggest games of the year. Randy Gregory looked good when they first got him, but he was pretty lacking most of the year. Armstead's good, but he had chronic injuries. What do you think? Are the Niners, are they improved on the defensive line? Are they, status quo, just with new faces? Or is there regression there in your mind?
Honestly, it's a good question. And it is something that we don't talk about. And me and you last year, we both said, I don't think the D-line is strong enough. They need more edge rushers. We were screaming. Like they ended up getting Chase Young and, Randy Gregory. They were rentals. It was like rental players because
Taco Charlton, remember Taco in the summer?
And Charlton, they got there was the other guy they got that was a Lions guy that was injured throughout the season, oft injured. He didn't really pan out. They had Kerry Hyder who tried to come back with the team. Like they were getting players because they kind of missed out on really addressing that D-line. Drake Jackson didn't take that leap that they all expected. He got hurt, Javon Kinlaw, first fresh season, healthy season, he's out. I really feel they upgraded. Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, those are two guys that have been healthy, perennial players on their team, good run stuffers. Armstead, as much as I loved him, he missed a lot of time over the last 2 years with his injuries, with plantar fasciitis, knee injuries. Hargrave last year, he was a solid addition. He was the big piece. Now he's kind of like this veteran on the line. You got Nick Bosa, who's Nick Bosa, but last year, contract, he kind of started slow. Now Nick Bosa is you can see a difference. He's ready to make up for what he messed up last year. And Leonard Floyd, he's going to be a consistent edge rusher they haven't had on the other side of Nick Bosa. They got some younger guys that we've mentioned, Robert Beal might take that leap this year. And Yatir Gross-Matos, he could kind of be that piece maybe this year that helps kind of be like the Amenahu type guy. Because I feel last year they took a huge loss because they lost Ebukam, they lost Amenahu, they lost all these guys, Willis on the line, right? All these guys that they were trying to replace, and I don't think they did a good enough job in replacing them. I felt like all season last year, they were trying to replace those guys they lost in the offseason. I think they did a better job this year in finally addressing that D-line. So I think they'll be better. And that run defense, it shows you how bad they addressed that D-line because the run defense in the playoffs was absolutely atrocious, Larry. And that, to me, is something they got to improve. And, it's not only just the players. They have a whole new defensive line defensive coordinator You got Staley, you got Sorensen. So how are they going to implement their defense? How are they going to change things? You got new players on the D line. I feel like you did address this D line more. So I think this year it should be better, but we got to see how it goes. As long as they got Chris Kasurek, these D linemen are going to develop. He gets all these guys paid. People have their career years with Chris Kasurek. This man should get a thank you card, a Christmas card from so many players. Arden Key, all these guys got paid because of Chris Kasurek. So as long as he's there, I know they're going to be talented, but really depends on if they can stay on the field, because that's been the issue. A lot of these guys couldn't stay on the field.
I got to be honest. I never thought that we'd see 49er D linemen under Chris Kasurek jaking it.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd see that. Because he coaches with reckless abandon.
Yeah.
You've been to camp. You've seen him. They're playing music really, really loud. But if they weren't playing music really, really loud, you'd hear that guy MFing everybody because he's just, he's just screaming at the top of his lungs. And he's just such a high energy coach that I was shocked to see Givens and Chase Young kind of Cadillacing it in a game of that magnitude. And I got to be honest, I was disgusted by it. And I brought it up to Shanahan. He was disgusted by it. Lynch was disgusted by it. Wilkes, I don't know if Wilkes was pissed at me for bringing it up or just pissed at those guys for jaking it, but he stared right at me the next day for the entire time he was talking about the effort of his D linemen.
Yeah.
Because he knew I called them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he was happy about it or pissed about it, and I don't really care. But I thought that was really interesting. And it was one of those days where I wasn't sitting up front. I was off to the side. And he walks in and he's like, and I'll tell you right now. And it's like, dude, I mean, people were looking over at me like, dude, what is he talking to you? And I'm like, yeah, man, it really felt like he was talking to me. But it had to be called out. I mean, I drove down there that day, the day before, the Tuesday after the NFC Championship game. And I'm sitting there going, I have to ask.
We
Kyle
talked
Shanahan
about it that night, and you said, I'm going to ask him. And I was like, okay. And you did.
I know. And I'm like, I have to ask this question. But I'm like, you know what? What I'll do is I'll just wait to the end. Because if I wait to the end, then somebody else will ask the question. But man, I waited almost to the very end, and nobody had asked the question. And so I had to ask it. And it ruffled feathers for sure. But it was also good to see. I mean, the Niner D line in the Super Bowl, they didn't win the game, as we all know. But the D line played with their freaking hair on fire in that game.
Yeah, they played better. Chase played better that game. And you know what? They had to be held accountable. I'm glad you asked that question. Because I remember when it happened, a lot of people thought that was like Grant Konas. So I was like, oh, that's my boy Larry. He's answered. And I was like, okay, Larry, coming with the fire.
I didn't want to ask that question, but I was like, you know what? This has to be asked.
It did.
And then I felt bad because it became a topic of Super Bowl week. Yeah. And now all the national media kind of glums on and, they didn't glum onto it as much as I thought they would, considering it was guys playing 3/4 speed in the NFC title game. But it still was a talking point throughout the week. 49er throwbacks is, Larry, one thing people don't want to note is that Eric Armstead was loved by the entire locker room. His leadership can't be underestimated. 49er throwback, you're spot on that. He absolutely was loved. What do you think, Raj? I mean, so the first question is, how good's the D-line? The second question is, how good's the run D without the three best run defenders? Armstead was arguably your best up front, Greenlaw on the second level, Afonga on the third level. At least in the beginning of the year, they're going to play without all three of those guys. Yeah. They get Breece Hall in week 1. They get who's the Minnesota running back? It just went there. They get the Minnesota running back in week 2. I forget who. Oh, it's Aaron Jones. The former
Aaron
Packer.
Jones is on. Yeah,
he's now there. Then you get Kyron Williams.
Yeah,
and Blake Corum in week 3 against the Rams. You've got Ramondre Stevenson against the Patriots in week 4. You've got James Conner and Trey Benson from the Cardinals in week 5. I mean, the Niners at the beginning of the year, if they can't stop the run, that might be a real problem. How concerned are you about their ability to stop the run, and how much of a loss do you think Armstead is as a leader?
Yeah, those are all good questions. And, honestly, the stopping the run to me is the biggest aspect this defense I'm worried about, because that's really what kind of was causing us to get down in these holes deficits in the playoffs last year. I mean, Aaron Jones. You talk about Aaron Jones. That man ripped us apart. I thought we were losing that Packers game because I mean he cut
on that second half run.
Oh, my heart was in my just
that
mouth.
was it was hard to picture at the end of that, whatever it was, 45 yard run.
Yeah.
It was hard to picture at that point the Niners winning the game.
Win. I was sick, dude. I was sick, and the fact we won, the adrenaline I had after that play, you're like, there's no way. And then the Lions, they were ripping and roaring all over us. Gibbs and it was just wow. So yeah, to me, the run game is run defense is a huge factor. And I know Armstead's a big factor of this team, but he was coming into that defense injured in the playoffs. He played through the meniscus injury. To me, Greenlaw and Huff were the biggest loss to the season because as the season went on, you can tell Hufanga not being there was a huge factor, and then later, Greenlaw missed some time with the injury, and then he got injured in Super Bowl, and that was horrible. So he's going to be a big loss to start the season. Hufanga was a big loss. Will he be back to 100%? He says he's going to be back for week 1, but will he be the same? And Armstead, honestly, again, I'm not too worried about Armstead because he did battle through injuries last year. I honestly am really excited about Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. I think they're going to be able to bridge the gap and fill in for Armstead. Now, his leadership, it's another story. I know they loved him. He was they respected him so much. I mean,
it's time for Warner to lead. It's time for Bosa to lead. It's time for some of those other guys to lead.
You got Warner. You have Bosa. And I feel like they've taken this role, especially Bosa. He's really stepped up as a leader. I think Warner has been a really big captain, but I think now he's going to be a bigger captain. So it will be a loss, Armstead in the locker room. But honestly, they got other guys that can step up. Hargraves is a veteran. He's been on this team now for 2 years, and he's got that veteran presence. I think we'll be okay as long as Warner and Bosa can step up. I really think Bosa's got to pick up the slack, in terms of the leadership and captaincy. And I feel like he's getting to that point now.
No doubt. Sacred Intuition says, Larry, why so quiet on Malik Collins? In my opinion, he's going to be a factor. There's not a lot for me to say. I loved Malik Collins coming out of Nebraska. And to me, when I saw him coming out of Nebraska, I thought this guy is enormously strong, ridiculously strong, rarely strong. So I love the strength of the guy. Now, that player coming out of Nebraska didn't have the pass rush ability that this player has. Now he's been in the league a few years. And Chris Kasarik was asked about Collins. He says, I really liked him coming out of Nebraska, just the explosion that he can generate through his lower body. He jumps off the tape. He can play in the backfield. He can recreate the line of scrimmage. He's really athletic on the backside to make plays. So he really loves Malik Collins. I love the strength. I guess I got to wait and see on the pass rush ability. But I like Malik Collins. And I like Jordan Elliott. I was a big Jordan Elliott fan. When I saw him at Missouri, he was one of the guys I really wanted the Niners to get in the draft, and it didn't happen. I mean, they didn't go for Jordan Elliott, and then Jordan Elliott has been, not that great according to PFF, but he was the 6th best defensive tackle in the league last year against the run in the PFF breakdown. So he's good against the run, but I actually think there's quick feet there, and there's some pass rush ability, and he's another guy who's strong, quick feet. He can push back the guards. I like the fact. First of all, I hate players with chronic injuries because it just doesn't get any better, and that's what Armstead had. And the Niners, I don't want to say played dirty with him, but they made their intentions abundantly clear.
Hey, and it's a business, Larry.
Right. I mean, when I say dirty, I mean, I don't want anybody thinking I'm ripping the Niners on this front, but they offered him such a low amount that they knew he would lose face by taking it, and then they knew he wouldn't take it. But sometimes you have to make an offer that tells the player that you need to nudge them out the door, because he was going to come back for his 10th year, and he was going to wind up playing out of a full season. He was probably going to wind up playing 7 games, 8 games. They were going to wind up paying him $10 million or more. And it just, for that, now you got 2 guys for the price of 1. They're younger, they're healthier. I fully endorse the Armstead out, Collins and Elliott in. I think they got younger. healthier, cheaper. I think overall they were good decisions.
I do too. It's a business. At the end of the day, no love. I mean, yeah, I get it. Armstead has got to feed his family. I guess he's feeding them caviar for every meal, because he made a big stink about it. He went on social media. He went on his podcast, and I get it. I love the guy. I don't think he's worth that price anymore because of the injuries. And you got a fair market value. They took a they gave him a huge pay cut, and that's the 49ers politely, because he is well revered in the locker room. He is a captain, and they loved him. The 49ers are politely saying, hey, look, dude, we got to let you go. This is what we're going to be able to afford to pay you because you've missed a lot of time. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. And hey, the Jaguars offering that much money they did, kudos to Armstead for getting that contract. Like, I wouldn't have paid him that much money with his injury. So it's a win-win. Armstead got his contract. He gets a new team. I think he needed a new team. He needed a new lease on life here. So it was a fresh start for him somewhere. He could be a veteran leader. And the Niners got two, younger, healthier players that, again, they've been very durable. And the thing is, Collins and Jordan Elliott to me and Yetur Gross-Matos, those are guys I feel like are the Chris Kasurik prototype. They're guys that they have this talent. They came out of college and you're like you said, really good potential players, but they just haven't hit their stride. Chris Kasurik's going to get his hands on them, and they're probably going to have their best seasons in their career, and they're going to get paid more than they ever have once Chris Kasurik's done with them. He's done that to player after player. When they fizzled out, some are Clelin Ferrell, Charles Omenihu, Arden Key. The list goes on and on. And these guys have gotten paid so much. With Samson had become more money than they ever had, thanks to Chris Kasurik. And he's going to do it to these guys. So
yeah, he's going to have to. Chris is going to earn his money this year because he's going to have to really coach it up and get some guys going and really get it out of some of these guys.